What's the difference between D7 and D dominant 7? It's the same chord. D7 has an implied word. Dominant, it's just being spoken with invisible ink. It's assumed to be there. It's saying, know the dominant scale and use the notes from that scale to construct the chord. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, no one ever taught me the D dominant scale. Here's the thing, this scale has another name. Are you ready? It is also called the mixolydian. You know what else this is telling us? If you play the D dominant 7 chord and you play D mixolydian over that chord, it's going to match. Watch. Actually, all chords are telling you what scale they are sourced from. The D major chord is sourced from the D major scale. This mentality works. If I play the D major chord, I can also play the D major scale on top. It's going to match. D minor chord is drawing its notes from the D minor scale. So D dominant 7 is drawing its notes from the dominant scale. And remember, the 7's telling you to add the 7th degree of the scale. There's like 2 parts to this chord name. First part, what scale are we drawing from? Second part, is there any change or addition or extension? Right? It's not that complicated. Just a lot of self-taught people never see it laid out that way. And that's okay. Now, another question just popped in your head, and it's a good question. And the question is this: why does the D7 chord default to the dominant scale? Wouldn't it make more sense if that chord defaulted to the major scale? I didn't know I had permission to use other scales than major or minor with my chords. How does this all work? I follow your logic in this argument, but music theory goes through great lengths to avoid logic. The thing about the mixolydian scale is this. It was the standard scale for writing church music. Let's go back in time to the medieval period, which was in 1988, and the church was using...
Could we fact check that?
What's up?
Medieval period, 5th century.
Oh, okay. Sorry, let's go back in time to the medieval era, which was the 5th century. The church used a musical system that we now call Gregorian modes. There was no key signature. There was no treble clef. Instead of a key and a tonic, they focused on melody lines, specifically the intervals between notes. Modern music thinks of chords and melodies that fit within the framework of a key. Gregorian chants don't give a shit. They say, I'm moving up to this interval because it sounds good. In our modern framework, that interval's not even in the key. Gregorian chants don't care. That's just how they do. Totally different system of writing music. Gregorian chants used 4 main modes. We call these the authentic modes, and they are Dorian. This is a major scale with a flat 3 and a flat 7. By the way, this is a very modern explanation. I'm comparing Dorian back to the major scale. They were not thinking of it that way, but I'm assuming you are a modern audience, so I'm putting it in your framework. Now, if any of you happen to be from the 5th century, would you please call me? Because I've always wanted to a vampire. Editor, why did you bleep that? I said date. Second mode is Phrygian. This is a flat 2, a flat 3, a flat 6, and a flat 7. Next mode is Lydian. Sharp 4. And the last mode is our buddy Mixolydian. Flat 7. So humans spent a couple hundred years doing the church music. Along the way, some extra modes were added. Eventually, there were 8 Gregorian modes. Then there were 12 Gregorian modes. They kept multiplying. And in 1540, Ionian and Aeolian modes were added. And if you really want to kill it on trivia night, you now know that the Mixolydian mode was in use 1,140 years before the major scale was. And even though the major minor scales were added, they were still writing church music. Like, they weren't writing Johnny Cash yet. Look, I'm sure someone had played a D7 chord up to this point in time, but nobody called it a cowboy chord. Probably because cowboys weren't invented yet. So here's the thing, it took from 1540 all the way through the 1700s, the Renaissance, for major and minor scales to take hold. In the 18th and 19th century, there was a gradual abandonment of the old Gregorian modes in place of this new major-minor tonality system that was starting to emerge. Guys, that's us. The major-minor tonality becomes modern music. That becomes our diatonic system. But it was gradual. Mixolydian mode was still hanging out. It was still here, going to jousting matches, getting drunk, streaking across the countryside, while the major minor scales were going to job interviews. They were performing in the operas at the King's Ball. They were getting hired to go on tour with the British academies of music. And this new major minor tonality can do all sorts of things that Gregorian modes can't do. It can do functional harmony, key signatures. It can do personal expression through music. That was new. But the other sexy thing it can do is establish the tonic through chord progressions. And you know what my mother always said, if he can find the tonic through chord progressions, marry him. Most men can't even find the tonic through the chord progression. I can't publish this joke. This shift in thinking got the music hippies all excited, and then they started coming up with new ways to organize music. For example, in 1612, Johannes Lippus wrote down 2 words that have never been put together before: harmonic triad. This marks the early development of harmonic theory. In 1722, Rameau published Treatise on Harmony Reduced to its Natural Principle. His goal, and I quote this from Wikipedia because it's so nerdy, his goal was to bring order to the scattered notations identified before him and make harmony a deductive science, like mathematics. My God, we would have been friends. Look, I'm not saying these music theory hippies invented chords. These chords were in use long before then, but they did start to organize them and categorize them according to this new thought process that was emerging. So you're right, dominant 7 chords is this whole thought process that doesn't refer back to the major or the minor scale. This is because we used to think about music through Gregorian modes. Mixolydian was a primary scale for a long time. Like if you were a vampire from that century, you would be more familiar with how Mixolydian sounds than how major sounds. You would also me, right? Stop bleeping that. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why don't we update the chord names to reflect modern times? I was about to end the YouTube video here and go play Stardew Valley with my cat. Now I have to spend another 10 minutes answering that question, but I guess I'll do it if you watch an ad, okay? This is an ad and a banana for scale. Please like and subscribe for this humpback whale. Merch. Now, where were we? Oh yes. Would you believe me if I told you there's some modern contemporary genres that do not rely on major and minor tonality? It's a genre you all know. It's that obscure magical quantum genre that can fix any mistake you make on guitar. The one we joke about when music theory is drunk. Makes no sense. That's right, it's sea shanties. I'm just kidding, it's jazz. The jazz mentality don't give a shit, they do it different. But before we study jazz's quantum ability to heal the wrong notes that we play on guitar, we have to look at jazz's grandmother, blues. Now the blues birthed many a thing: rock, roll, 12 bars, and jazz. 12-bar blues, check this out. Blues is not thinking in the major minor tonality system. I mean, they are a little bit, but not all the way. Like it's a spectrum. Look, take a look. I'll demonstrate it for you. Listen to this. 12-bar blues. I'm going to play the dominant scale or the mixolydian scale over each of these chords. Not one major scale, not one minor scale will appear in what I'm about to play. Listen. Oh God, do you want to hear how this progression would sound if we did source it from the major scale? I've actually never done this before. I don't think anyone's done this before. Oh my God. Okay. That did not sound like blues. The quality of blues comes from the fact that they use the dominant scale or the mixolydian scale, not the major. And remember, it is a spectrum. There will be times where the major scale appears in blues. You can have a mixture of these two mentalities. It is not strict black and white. Music usually is not strictly black and white. It's usually based on context. I'm a teacher. I hate giving that answer. A student asks a question and I go, it depends on context. It's going to depend on context here. So there's still a very modern use for the D7 chord to exist. It's not outdated. So dominant chords will do amazing things if you let them. In fact, there's one other thing it can do for teachers. If a student says to me, why isn't the D7 chord compared back to the major scale? It tells me where your comfort zone lies. It tells me how you're thinking about music. You're hinting that you're thinking in this major-minor tonality system. This is not wrong. Let's be real. Most self-taught guitarists start in that arena. This is kind of normal. But your question gives me an opportunity to introduce you to a new way to think about music. Modally. If you're asking that question, it's a good time to start learning modal music. If you're also asking that question, it tells me you're not a vampire from the 4th century, so I won't you. Stop bleeping that word. This scale has another name. It's Jeffrey. Most men can't find the tonic through the chord progression, yet they're out there finding Bigfoot. In fact, right now, music theory is drunk. Most men are bragging that they can find the tonic, but you don't even know what to do with it once you've found it. I can't publish this. Which, let's be real, most self-taught guitarists start there. I fucked that sentence. British Academies of Music. Academies of Music. Sure, the Royal Academy of Music. Not too far off, Lindy. I'm reading a script. I don't have this memorized. You can have a mixture. A little bit. A lot bit. Ha. This is hard to explain. Most women can find the tonic, yet they can't find a man with a trust fund. 6'5", in favor of this new major-minor tonality system that was emerging. Music theory is not drunk, I am.